Welcome back to the live session, E-mini Nasdaq 100. Today is Monday, December the 11th. We're here again for another 30-second scalping session. It's good to have everyone join us again. So I checked the news this morning, and so far there's nothing on the schedule, so we can trade this morning without having any news interrupt us. There also wasn't anything before the session. The only news today is an orange folder this afternoon at 1 o'clock, so it shouldn't have any bearing on our morning session here. I was just checking out and seeing where we've been so far, and it looks like we've pretty much consolidated since midnight. There's been some bullish movement. There was a full retracement of that movement around 6:30, and then price turned bullish again. What I wanted to do is I want to just quickly highlight the structure of the trades that we take, that we're going to look for, and it's going to involve finding the market direction. And then once we find the market direction, we're going to look for liquidity to be taken in the opposite direction. And once that occurs, we're going to look for market to continue in its previous direction. So let me just show an example of what that is. So if we're looking here just before 9:30, you see this big bullish candle and then a retracement back down, right? So as I mentioned, after 6:30, when there was a full retracement, from 6:30 until basically 9:30, price consolidated mostly, but in a bullish fashion, if you will. So let me just remove some of these purple lines. So what we have is we have price, sort of moving upwards, but slowly, very slowly. And so once we determine that this is a bullish movement, then when I say we're looking for liquidity to be taken in the opposite direction, I mean we're looking for a low to be swept. So as price is moving up, you see lows are being protected. You don't see lows being taken, and that's what we need. We need a low to be taken. So once this low was made, price moved up and it never came back down. After that, this low was made, price continued up and never came back down. Same here. So that's what I mean by we want liquidity to be taken. So we need a low to be taken out. And we find that on this side. So we had a low created here, and then price trickled down below that low. So I draw the line here just to make it clearer and make it easier for everyone to see when that level is reached. But you can almost eyeball it. Sometimes it's harder to do, but in this case, you could see from a distance that this low was taken. And once that occurs, now the next step in the process is we need price to continue in its previous direction, which was bullish. So we need now this previous high, which was the high made prior to it price moving down to take this low. That previous high, we now need that high to be swept. And we get that on the 9:30. The 9:30 bullish movement through the zone. It moved higher than this high. Right there. So once that happens, this entire move down to sweep liquidity in the opposite direction, we consider that our manipulation leg. And since that's our manipulation leg, we want to put a Fibonacci on it, and we want to highlight 30% retracement back into this zone, which is this level right here. Let me make this a little easier to see. Okay, so we want price to return to 30%, and then we expect it to then push out of that back into its current trending direction. So the way to trade looks like on here is we'll put a long tool at 30%. We'll set our stop at 5 points. We'll set our take profit at 5 1/4. And that was the trade. Price retraced, hit 30% level, pushed out for a 5 points take profit, which you can see occurred during the same 30-second candle. It dipped down, crossed a 30%, and then closed right at the top of the zone. So maybe it was the next candle that turned out to be the TP winner. So that's just one example of the type of trades that we're looking for during the scalping session. I will highlight more as we continue on. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll make sure I answer those for you. And as we're moving into looking for new setups, I do want to highlight that I'm not a licensed financial advisor. So do take this as education and entertainment only. Do not take this as financial advice. Do not take money and take trades that you see me engaging in. Yeah, I am walking you through the strategy. If you believe in the strategy, I do advise you to backtest, practice the setups, practice seeing the setups. It took me probably a week of backtesting just to be comfortable seeing the setups regularly and knowing which ones to believe in and which ones to trade, knowing when not to trade when I see consolidation, that kind of thing. I don't know exactly which trades will win and which ones won't, but I do know which trades I don't like, I don't favor. And so backtesting was able to help me with that. Okay, Chris, excellent. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at where we draw the Fibonacci, and let's see if we can't answer your questions. So this is right now, Chris. This is the I guess the latest trade that I'm looking at, or the latest setup potentially. And so as we're bullish, we want price to continue to make new highs, right? So let's take this high, for instance, not the current high, but the one before, this one right here. So once it made this high, before we can look for another setup, we need price to take a swing low. And a swing low is defined as a low point that has a higher low on both sides. So we see a low here. To the left, this candle has a higher low, and to the right, this candle has a higher low. So this, it makes kind of, let me see if I can draw something for you. Okay, I don't see the drawing tool, but okay, this is a better example. Right here, these 3 wicks is a swing low, right? Because you have a low point and you have higher lows on both sides. So what we're looking for is we're looking for one of those to be broken. So in this case, the first one I saw was this low, this lower low, and this higher low. I saw it being broken by this candle right here. When it wicked down, it cleared out this low, right? Once that occurred, Then I wanted to look for a high. Well, I wanted to see it continue in the direction it was before. So the high before we came down was here. So now I need this high to be eclipsed. Once we pass through this high, then the Fibonacci goes on the leg that took out the low. So this entire leg here is what we're measuring. So the previous high to the fake move is what we consider the manipulation. And then you put the long tool over on 30%. Price dipped down, touch 30%, and then bought out and cleared the 5 points. And clear this up. Move the long tool. Okay, now where we are, price made a new high. So now we want to see a low being taken. A swing low, the first one that we have is right here. The very first wick down has a higher low to the left and a higher low to the right. So this becomes the first low that we're looking to see if it can be taken. Right? And in the very next candle, it wicked down and that low was then swept. Now what we want to see is for price to resume, and we want to see the previous high before the low. We want to see this high being taken. And before that happens, price continues lower and takes out this low. And then it continues lower and takes out this low. So when we do our Fibonacci for the retracement leg, well, I'm sorry, for the manipulation leg, it's going to be the entire movement. Even though it swept the low up here, price continued even lower for several more candles. So you want to do the entire movement. Then we wait for price to sweep, and it did. It took the high. Then we put the Fibonacci out. And as you can see, this trade would have been a loser. We would have lost this trade. But that is the mechanics of it. Just take a look and see what we missed between 9:30 and, let's see, roughly 10 o'clock. Okay, so we had the first example I showed you. Hmm. All right, this was a winner as well. This white candle here made a new high. Next candle dipped down to 30%, bought out. Okay, made a new high. We now see a sweep of a low there. This would have also been a loser. Okay, this was a winner at 30%. You see price came close to tapping out. Let me make that larger, but it did not. Came close down, but it didn't. Looks like maybe one tick or maybe two ticks, and then it bought out of it. Okay. And this is probably the last one. Where we saw price come in, dip out. Okay. So what do you say? Loser, winner, winner, loser, winner, winner. Okay, so in this grouping of the last 6 trade setups, there were 4 winners and 2 losers. From 30%. I didn't look at any of them from a 50% perspective or 70% perspective, but just purely taking the first 30% entry on each one, you would have 4 winners and 2 losers right now if you started at 9:30. Okay. So we're in the same protocol if we get a new high, because we have had lows taken here on this movement downwards. Right, so if we can take out this high, then we are back in business with another setup. Otherwise, let's just continue to monitor. We do have I wouldn't call it a full consolidation, but price is definitely moving up slower than it was before. And actually, these purple lines I have set up, marking up this trade setup. Let's wait for price to get out of it, because we already had a setup here that produced a winner, and we're sitting right in the exact same zone here. Okay, wanted to make sure my 5-minute chart on the bottom left here is still visible, something we can see, because this is giving us our larger range trend, giving us a different perspective from just looking at the 30-second, which sometimes it's too zoomed in. You get tunnel vision. So the 5-minute allows me to see a little bit more of the market and realize when I'm off sides. Oh, let's see how many times in a day. Usually, I'll actually take 4 to 5 setups in a day. I'm usually sitting at the market every day from open to close. So I'm seeing every setup that forms. Even sometimes during the Asia session, early Asia session, maybe 8 or 9 p.m. New York time, I'll sit down and watch the charts for an hour or so and just either trade or just look for setups. Um, let's see, I do use other methods. I use ICT's 2022 method. I use that sometimes. I also use a silver bullet occasionally. So between 10 and 11 and in the afternoons, 2 and 3, I'll look for a silver bullet setup, which is essentially during those hours, a look for a fair value gap, and then look for liquidity in a untapped area. The low hanging fruit is usually 20, 30 point transaction. Um, but mostly for the last, I would say about 6 to 8 weeks, I've been using this scalping model. Actually, while we're waiting, let's get our short tool set up. And let's see, you did ask, or when do I switch contracts? Right, because I noticed, so when looking at the charts, you have two options when you choose Nasdaq futures. Right, on the chart that I trade, I always use the quarterly futures chart. Right, so here you can see December 2023 at the top, and so I'm using the December chart. But they do also have a continuous chart that every time there's a new quarterly chart, it kind of merges it together with previous information, and it doesn't have a month. It just emitting Nasdaq 100 futures, and the difference in symbols is this is NQ1 exclamation, whereas the December contract is NQZ 2023. So you asked, when do I switch contracts? And let me show you. So it's here on this website. You go to CME Group, and then you click on E-mini NASDAQ 100. And so when you get here, what happens is it'll show you the current contract as well as all the future contracts that are available. And of course, December of next year, there's no volume. There's a tiny bit of volume in June, but March does have about 40% of the current volume that December is seeing. Once this flips and March has more volume than December, then I'll start using the March contract. So my guess is this will likely happen sometime later this week. So maybe Thursday or Friday this week we'll be switching, or early next week will be the last time we use the December contract. So I hope that helped. And I hope that was the question you asked. Is that what you were looking for, Chris? There you go. Throw the link in there for you. Any questions from anyone else? Okay. So we had a market structure shift um, on this big movement downwards, but then we traded right back into above that zone. So I didn't want to switch bearish yet. We then traded down past it again, and now we've taken out this swing low. So we definitely want to look for shorts if we take a trade in the next few candles. But the only way to do so is now. Remember, we need or the opposite direction to have a swing taken out. So in that case, we're looking for a swing high. So this high has lower highs to the left and right of it. So this would be a swing high that we're looking to see if potentially it wants to be taken. Let's move this line, and we have confirmation that we are looking for shorts. Right, and remember, since we're scalping, we are looking for short movements, so we don't want to look too far into this. So I pay attention to the 5-minute, and I can see that this is a retracement from the bullish movement at 9:30. So that doesn't mean that we are necessarily going to sell for the rest of the hour or for the rest of the session, anything like that. We could just actually be selling to get down past 50% to continue bullish momentum. And so that's why I do like to continue to refer to the higher time frame, in this case, the 5-minute, just to make sure that I understand where price is moving and the fact that it may only be temporary. Okay, we have a lower swing high now that could potentially be taken right here. So we don't need to worry about this one anymore. Okay, that swing high has been taken. And so the low that was made before this high was taken would now be the next step that we want to see not hold. We want to see price continue bearish. We want to see it make a new low. Okay, as far as this price leg downwards, right? If we're going to flip and become bullish again, this high would need to be taken. If this high is not taken and then it breaks down from here, then it's essentially just price action. Nothing really to note. Just a higher high than we expected. The fair value gap. Nas, absolutely. The 930 fair value gap. What we saw was, you're right, at 958, this fair value gap was created. Price traded down into it. We saw it wick out, but the candle bodies are still inside of the gap. And then price came out with a bit of an impulsive move, which is good. So we may see price return to becoming bullish, and we want to see it go above 16,381. That's our level. If it does not and it breaks down again, we're going to continue looking for shorts. But now that we know that this fair value gap is a area of confluence, we want to see it break down below. And again, remember, we want to see it make a new low, so it would have to break through. But in this case, we want to see the candle body close below just because of what we saw here, where it broke out, traded back in, and then made higher prices. Okay, let me just remove this line just to make it a little cleaner. Okay. Okay, remember earlier, this is where that last losing setup was. So we want to avoid taking setups in this range. We want to see price break out. Okay, So from this price leg that was just created, we now see we've retraced down to 50%. We know price likes to retrace on any given price leg 50% and as a minimum to balance price. What it also did was it closed in this fair value gap, giving some bearish values in here, allowing them to also enter the market. And now let's see if we get more bullish movement from here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run and fill up my coffee mug, make sure I'm sharp for the rest of the session. Be right back. This fair value gap is still in play. Let's see if potentially we get down to 50% and then buy out of it, or if it's just sort of this upper quarter. Okay, ES just made a higher high. Okay, that's good to know. You know what, let's quickly shift over to the hour and let's grab the dollar. Let's just take a peek and see what's happening with the dollar. Okay, dollar made a new daily high. Okay. Let's go to 15 minutes. Okay, I see. Yeah, ES did just make a new high for the day. Dollar made a new high for the day about 30 minutes ago, and now it's retracing. Oh, I'm sorry, this is in Q. Dollar made its high for the day just as ES did. Okay, yeah, that's not exactly what we want to see. We want to see dollar moving in the opposite direction as everything else, but it's fine. It just means that we're more likely to have consolidation. That's all. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. I put these markings on the INQ continuous contract. All right, now we're back on the December contract. Okay, so we're still bullish. So in that case, what we're looking for is we have a high that was made here, which made us bullish. Then we needed a low to be swept, remember? Our next step. That next step was satisfied right here. We have a low, a lower low, and then a higher low. So this would be a swing low, these 3 points. We have a sweep below that. Now what we're looking for is for a new high to be made, which we are one tick away from it here. That'll then make this entire position our manipulation. Okay, now we have finally broken that high. Now we look for the retracement. Actually, I take that back. We did say we didn't want anything in this area. This was the area where we lost that trade from that markup. Okay, so let's hope this breakout now brings us a new trade up in this area that we haven't traded in yet, and we can find a setup there. So let's just remove this so we don't get confused and we don't even take a trade there. But we do have a new high, so let's wait for the next low to be swept. Okay. Which potentially the next low swept could be right here. Or it could be a little higher. Okay. Price continues to make new highs. We're still waiting for a low to be swept. We actually may get it in this area since we have this huge fair value gap. This is an easy spot for it to retrace to, create 2 or 3 lows. That will be a swing low, sweep that, and then continue higher. But we now have dollar, we have ES, and we have Nasdaq all making new highs for the day within the last 15 minutes. Typically, if you're looking for a longer setup, something in the 20, 30, or 40 point range, you wouldn't want to take a trade when all three of these are, I'm sorry, when Nasdaq, ES, and the dollar are trading in the same direction. You want to see the dollar trading in the opposite direction of all the commodities. When you get that, that's when you have a little more comfort that price is moving in the direction that you see, and you won't get a fake out. Okay, let's see if we get a swing low up in this area that can then be swept. Okay, we got a new high, but again, we need a low before we can move on to the next step in the process. It's good that we have a low that's in a higher range than the consolidation zone we wanted to get out of. So this is good. Let's go ahead and mark that up as our next target. Not expecting this fair value gap to hold. I do want to identify it just so I see it, but I am hoping this low gets swept. Okay, so the high from November 29th is at 16,210. We're about 10 points away. We do reach that, yes, we can expect for a price to retrace, and it's likely to retrace past the order block and into the next fair value gap. Continue to, there we go. Finally, we have a swing low broken. Just getting everything set up just in case we get a new high. Okay, getting closer. Let's just mark it up so it's easier to see. Okay, got a setup that is a losing setup here. Price retrace back to these equal lows. See now if price runs up to 16,210, which was the high of November 29th. We do actually have another setup. This low was, which is, just remove this. We have the high that was made that triggered us into the last setup. Then as price retraced down, we had a low swept. And now if we have a push upwards again, then we could have another setup. Right, let's remove this. Let's get rid of the fair value gap. And let's sit back and watch and see if price wants lower prices or if it wants to continue. Okay, right at 50% right now. Let's see if that holds or if it continues to crash. Okay, so as of right now, we did cross over into a market structure shift. So there's potentially a short setup. We have to continue to watch price a little bit to see if that actually materializes. But we're closer to a short setup than we are to a long. Okay, new low has been made. Let's just take a peek at the 15-second and see if potentially there was a high that was swept here. Okay, on the 15-second, there actually was a high. So this is the same movement down that we had on the 30. This was our previous low. On the retracement back up, it broke down, came down to the fair value gap, went up for a candle, down and back up. So this would have been a swing high right here. High, lower high to the left, lower high to the right. So that would have been the swing high that was taken. Then price broke down. Fortunate for us, there still isn't really a trade because once a new low was made down here, there was never a retracement back up. So we didn't miss a setup, but step two, step two was already created in the 15-second. Let's switch back over to the 30. Let's get rid of this fair value gap. Okay, there's a bearish fair value gap here. Okay, wait, so we just had a sweep of a high right here. There's a high, there's a lower high to the left, lower high to the right. Now we look for a continuation downwards, make a new low. We can come down and make a new low. And we're potentially looking at a short setup. For anyone watching the clock, it's now almost 10 after 11. So we've crossed over into the next hour. That early macro is now done. Let's see now what price wants to do to set up for the lunch hour. Okay, there is a new low now. Okay. Let's see if we can get a retracement prior to reaching this fair value gap. Yeah, I'm going to scratch this limit order. Just not a real fan of whatever movement may come out of this fair value gap. The last time we were here, you can see the movement that traveled. It was a big bullish movement out of this area. So I just want to make sure that I don't get caught up in that. Go and clean up our charts a bit so we can have a better view of what we're looking at. All right, pushing in there. It looks like we have some new people in the chat. If today is your first time joining the live stream, if you can go into the chat and type in where you're from and how long you've been trading. All right. While we're seeing Nasdaq create lower prices, let's go back over to the dollar and see if the dollar's still moving. Let's get to a higher time frame. Okay, yeah, it's not really moving since it made that new high, so it hasn't shown whether it's going to continue higher or whether it's going to drop lower. So we still don't know. Let's take a peek at ES. ES is dropping, very similar to Nasdaq. Although price action this morning for ES, it's been, yeah, all consolidation until the last hour. It made a move up, whereas Nasdaq had a much tighter consolidation and then a larger move. Okay, let's get back down to the 30-second. Okay, we can get rid of this fair value gap. We've seen a bearish one form on the other side, similar to this one. There was a bullish fair value gap before in precisely the same area. On its way down, it crashed through the bullish fair value gap, created a bearish one. And usually when I see that, that second one, in a lot of cases, has validity to it. And just as I said that, this one didn't hold. New York City, 1 year. All right. Welcome. Unknown. Okay, if we can get this candle to hold and not make a new high, then we have a swing high that potentially could be our next target for then lower prices, and then we have a short setup. Let me just highlight that so we know what we're looking for. Okay. I was just taking a look at the higher time frame, and on the daily chart, we are sitting in the upper, I guess the upper half of a bearish fair value gap. So it's having issues breaking out of that, which is why we had a run up to a high and then a retracement. That was the high of the fair value gap that we saw these these values here up at right at 16,200. Doesn't mean we won't be able to break that area, but you know, a lot of times it doesn't pass on the first go, or it doesn't break through on the first pass. It'll reject, retrace a bit, create some more manipulation, maybe take out some more liquidity prior to leaving the area. Anas, you're right. Yes, we do have a breaker block. We did just make a new low from this low at 10:30. Only thing is these candle bodies are really small, so the breaker is probably going to be, I guess, in. I'm not the best at breakers, but I'm assuming it's basically this. So now that we've broken out, you either get a return to 50% and then a breakdown. Looks like right now we're at 1/4% or somewhere in that area. Let's see. Yep. So we're not far It only barely went past 0.25% and then broke down. But in order for a short setup, we need a sweep of one of these highs to happen. We can move this down actually to here. That's our lowest swing low or swing high that we're waiting to have broken. I can almost guarantee, I bet you it broke on the 15. Yeah. On the 15-minute, we had a swing high here, which was taken out on this movement up. Sorry, on the 15-second. This movement up, it took out this swing high. And then broke down. So on the 15-second, this would have been, let's see. In there. Just had a trade back in. But this would be the trade on the 15-second. On the 30-second, we didn't have a break of a high yet. Although we probably do now with this movement. So it probably was prudent to wait. Let's move over to the 30-second. Move this high. Shift this over. So we have a break of a high. Now we need a new low from relative equal lows here. And the first 30 to 45 minutes of this session provided us 5 entries, I believe, and now we're struggling to get one. But this is sometimes typical of the 11 o'clock hour. It's also typical in a Monday morning without any news, where you'll get some type of volatility at the opening bell, and then after that, it's just slow moving candles. We do have an orange folder at 1 o'clock, so I don't know if that's what's holding up price action, but we'll keep that in mind when we head into the afternoon session. Okay, we have highs that have been taken. We're now looking for a new low. Until a new low is made, we're not looking for a short, which is monitoring price action. Let's move this. Okay, once the adjustment was made for all of the movement this morning from the 9:30 open until the high that we had just before 11 o'clock, we've now just passed 50% retracement. Okay. We also have a market structure shift. So we could return bullish let's continue to monitor price and just see what it wants to do next, whether it breaks down and take out lows, or whether it continues on its way up, maybe sweeping a low and then making a new high. If any of those occur, oh, I'm sorry, if the later occurs, will be bullish. If the former occurs, will be bearish. But right now we are leaning towards bullish, and we're looking for confirmation. Yes, Andrew. I haven't rolled over. I noticed the continued contract rolled over on Friday, I believe, because I noticed something was weird about the continuous contract numbers, and I checked, and yes, it did roll over. Um, I will show you. I threw a link in the chat earlier. I don't know if you saw it. But so if you go to this website, CME Group, and you check out the Nasdaq 100, you can see that. Let me just refresh, make sure that nothing's changed here. Yep. So you can see the December contract over the March contract. There's more volume on the December contract. And so until the March contract has more volume than December, I'm not going to switch. That'll likely occur either later this week or early next week. We'll be switching contracts over. Hey, no problem. And I just a little bit more information on that, Andrew. I noticed that the last probably 2 quarters that the continuous contract switched over approximately 1 week prior to when it needed to switch over. If you're enjoying the content this morning, if you could like the video, that would be great help towards getting YouTube to push out my video to others who may be looking for the exact same thing, looking for someone who's trading live futures, maybe even scalping, that they can come and watch, in a community to be a part of. Also, if you are enjoying it, this is your first time here, consider subscribing so you can get invitations to all future live streams. Currently, I'm doing morning and afternoon sessions. I'm not sure I'll always do both sessions, but for now, I'm at least through this week. I know I'm going to do both sessions, and likely into next week. Mm. Okay, we actually did have a sweep of a low. Sorry, I didn't recognize that. So our next step, we're looking for a new high to be made. So we're waiting for, what's the where price is 16,163 flat. When we make it up to that range, then we'll start looking for longs. Okay. And looks like the market had a different idea. So, oh, okay. Right, nix that idea. Okay, while we wait for some of this impulse to settle, I'm gonna go and get my last cup of coffee. I'll take a 2-minute break. I'll be right back. Okay, let's see where price is now. Let's see what type of stability is created. We clearly have a sweep of those double lows that I mentioned earlier. We have this downward slope in price, right back up, and then a crash down. All right, so sweep of those lows. Now, if we can get a sweep of a high, we're in business for a short. And we have a high here and potentially one here. Just depends on how this candle closes. Okay, it closed. So let's remove this one. Okay, the high has now been taken. Now we mark up our lowest low, and that's what we're looking for price to push to next. If we can get that movement, then we'll look for a short. Go ahead and mark up this area just so. All right, we're 20 minutes till the hour. Okay, so now let's see where price wants to go. Does it want to hit this fair value gap and react? Or do we crash through the fair value gap seeking these equal lows after sweeping this high? So swept this high, and then this high was the next one that was swept. So let's see if this was just a liquidity grab as opposed to a change in direction. Okay, so something has to give now. We have price kind of doing one of these numbers. So sometime in the near future, we will see it break out because it can't continue to make a smaller range and smaller range and smaller range. So let's just look and see which direction it goes in. Okay, I know we're moving close to the lunch hour, and maybe there weren't going to be any major movements in the last, 20 minutes or so prior to lunch. But I am expecting something to happen before then. I can't imagine the next 12 to 13 minutes being consolidation like this. But I will say, forcing it is not advised. So let's do wait for clear price indication as to um, whether we're looking for longs or shorts. And yeah, if we don't get anything in the next couple minutes, then just sit on the sideline and wait for the next hour to come. And generally, price will open up and provide you with opportunities to trade. Hmm. All right, keep extending it out. It's sitting right here at 50%, continuing to be indecisive. So while we wait, are there any questions from anyone in the room? Seven ten fair value gap. Okay. 1057 low. Are you saying you took a short from the 1057? 1057 low, which is, yeah, and I'm not sure I follow. It looks like we have a small breakout now. Clean up a bit. If this high is it's taken, I'll cancel the limit order and sit back and wait and see if it wants to retrace later or if it wants to create a new setup up in this area. Oh, I see. Okay. No, she was on the 1 minute. Okay. Got it. All right. We'll cancel the limit order. This becomes our low now. I love Monday price action. Yeah, no, it's, for me, Mondays are kind of hit or miss. Some Mondays are my best day of the week. Because most of the time, Monday, there won't be any news. Um, and so occasionally I have the best day of my week on Monday. And then other times, Monday is, oh, I have some words for that, but I think you get my drift. But it's okay. We'll let Price do whatever it does during lunch, and it's now 5 minutes to the hour, so I'll be on for another 5 minutes, and then we'll take an hour break, and we'll come back for an afternoon session. Um, just want to anyone who's potentially looking to take a prop firm challenge, consider Topstep. It's the one that I'm using. The $50,000 challenge is, I believe, $49. I have a link in the description if you want to use it. And everyone I know who uses it has had a good experience. I've had a good experience with them so far, and that's why I'm recommending it. I'm not recommending any products or solutions that I'm not actively using. But Topstep is my preferred prop firm. I do hope to test out Apex at some point, but I've never used Apex. I know a couple friends that are using it, but I don't have any experience with them. Okay, yeah, take it one step at a time, and now please don't try to make it back in two trades. That's the easiest way to blow your account. Just take a deep breath and chop it up into five or six little bits and try to work it back. All right, I know the last hour and 15 minutes has been rather uneventful. But I want to thank everyone for joining today, for being on the session. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. Um, I I don't know. I like watching price action. I like trading. I like the charts. On the weekends, I'm twiddling my thumbs, figuring out what am I going to do. But thank you for joining today. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you again this afternoon. I'll be back in 1 hour for those who can join. If not, I'll be on tomorrow morning, same time, 10 a.m. New York, and I hope to have everyone back. If you know anyone else who may appreciate this live stream, you know, please refer them over to my page and have them join our stream as well. I'd love to have them. But with that being said, thank you everyone for being here, and hopefully I'll talk to you in an hour. Thank you very much.